What is going on, my crew members? We're going to be starting off our Saw review series. This is a series that I have been wanting to do for the past week. However, there have been things going on that really prevented me from starting. So now that we are here, the week of Saw, it's better late than never. Now, Saw was the pioneer of the torture porn genre, if you will. Even though this movie didn't really lean on the torture aspects as much as the rest of the film said moving on forward, this is one of those movies that I know a lot of people love that I just think it's okay. James Wan and Lee Winnell met in college and they wanted to do a movie together in order for them to break into the industry, and they did it the very best way that almost every indie director nowadays does it, by making a low budget horror film set in one location with very little going on.
We're here to fuck shit up.
In Saw, you have two guys that wake up in a room chained up with no idea how they got there. They find what they suspect is a dead body in the room, and now it's a race for survival. The story behind this movie is absolutely incredible and very inspiring for those that want to be able to make movies or break into the industry. Because even though it is nowadays a lot of connections, there are a lot of ways for a lot of people to break into the industry, most notably with horror because they cost very little to make and they make a huge profit. So with James Wan and Lee Winnell, you had two guys that had no money, no big actors, and no time. Wan and Winnell were not big names at the time. They were just college friends with big dreams. And now Wan is one of my favorite horror directors, and Winnell is actually doing pretty well for himself. He directed The Third Insidious, which to me is my personal favorite film in the series. Upgrade was a uniquely fun movie that came out of nowhere and shocked a lot of people. And The Invincible Man made me think twice, wondering if there was anybody invincible in my room watching me sleep. Yeah, that movie kind of traumatized me a little bit. So before going into the meeting, they quickly made a short for the producers so that when they went to pitch the idea, they had more than just a script. They had a proof of concept, so they would bite, and now it's become a hit and miss franchise for me personally. Now, while I really enjoyed the Saw films and they are a guilty pleasure franchise of mine, I really enjoy them just for watching the traps and seeing how creative they can probably get. While I don't love the first Saw film, there are a couple of things that I can take away from this movie that make it very enjoyable for me. The overall premise and concept is something that I've always been fascinated with, because there is really a lot that you could do in a confined space that doesn't feel long or it feels like it's overstaying its welcome. With the central premise of two guys not knowing where they are or how they got there, it intrigues you every step of the way so that the overall idea doesn't become stale. It stays away from the traps as much as possible, just giving us a few glimpses of a couple of them while not lingering on them too much. You also have Danny Glover and Ken Leung as detectives who are investigating these jigsaw murders. While they don't add enough to the movie, they do enough to move the plot forward. While I love and appreciate the challenges that James Wan and Lee Winnell had to go through, they had to cut corners. Lee Winnell did a lot more than just be the writer and the actor for the film. He actually did a couple of stand-ins for a couple of shots. The acting in this movie is not the very best. I have never been able to buy into the performances by Lee Winnell and Carrie Elways. I do apologize if I butchered the last name, but the acting in this movie is absolutely terrible. The dialogue in this movie, especially in the first couple of minutes of this movie, is absolutely god awful, and it does set you up for the dialogue that's going to be expected moving forward, and a lot of that has to do with Lee Winnell. I get it, he was a first time writer, and when it comes down to it, I think the overall film was shot with the first draft, and you can definitely tell because some of the dialogue in this movie really doesn't work. And then you also have Danny Glover's characters that transitions from being a detective to being obsessed with finding Jigsaw after his partner is killed. And while it just comes out of nowhere, I get it. You kind of get the idea of why he's become really obsessed with trying to find Jigsaw. But the overall narrative of how his character goes from point A to point B kind of feels like it's coming out of nowhere, and it doesn't really fit too much into the movie. And then there is a middle section where it grinds to a halt and it slows down for me personally because it is hard for me to enjoy, especially when the acting isn't the best and the dialogue isn't the best. While I do appreciate the hustle that James Wan and Lee Winnell had to make in order to make this movie, they had a crunch deadline, not only by getting this movie filmed, edited, and released, but they also had it premiere at Sundance, and that was a little bit more challenging, and that is what really crunched their time a little bit. but I don't think this movie is terrible by any means. There are things that I really enjoy about this movie, and then there are things that I kind of wish were a little bit better. But overall, I'm going to go ahead and give Saw a 5 out of 10. But those are my thoughts on Saw. Did you guys enjoy it? Does it hold up for you? What are your thoughts on this series overall? And how excited are you for Saw X? Go ahead and drop your thoughts in the comments below. And I'll catch you guys soon.